well as Facebook page, and then also a link to the newsletter as well. So they will get that back to us, and we'll get all of the answers posted in writing. So Senator West, welcome again. We're so happy to have you here. So it'll be your turn now to give a 1 to 2 minute introduction of yourself.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here this evening. My name is Royce West. I'm the state senator in Senate District 23, and I will be your next United States Senator. So the question becomes, why should I be your next United States Senator? If we really want to turn Texas blue, we've got to have somebody at the top of the ticket that can energize the base. And I suggest to you that I'm that person. You're right here in Dallas County. You recall when Dallas County was red. I took the leadership to help with others to turn Dallas County blue. We've now turned it to deep blue. The same factors that we saw then exist now. And if we work together, we'll be able to turn Texas blue. It's real important to be able to get someone that can bring coalitions together. When you begin to think about the different clubs and different organizations within the Democratic Party, Royce West has been pretty good at bringing them together. The Hispanics, the Tahoe Democrats have endorsed Royce West. The Texas Coalition of Black Democrats have endorsed Royce West. Different organizations, the American Federation of Teachers, the Communication Workers of America, all have endorsed Royce West. And so the question becomes whether or not we really want to win and whether or not we need to have somebody at the top of the ticket that can energize the base. I suggest to you that Royce West can do that. It is important for me this evening to have a conversation with you. I want to hear what your questions are, and I want to be able to respond to those questions. So thank you again for allowing me to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, the first question is about the climate crisis. According to a study in the journal Science Advances, fracking wells in Texas and New Mexico's Permian Basin are producing even more methane than federal estimates had shown. What action would you take on the federal level to place aggressive limits on methane pollution for new and existing oil and gas operations?
Thank you very much for the question. First of all, what I would do is work to have a moratorium on any more fracking in this country until we know exactly what chemicals are being used in these wells. I'd make certain that we beef up the appropriate agency to be able to have oversight. You know as well as I know that when Trump became the president of this country, that a lot of budgets were in fact slashed. The agency responsible for oversight for that particular industry, their budget was slashed also. So I would restore the budget amount, make sure we got persons in that particular agency. I put a moratorium on any more fracking until we know exactly what chemicals are being utilized and what impact it's having on our water supply.
All right. Okay, the second question. Several senators have recently come under fire for stock transactions that took place shortly before the severity of COVID-19's threat was acknowledged. About half of U.S. senators have estimated a net worth of at least $1 million, if not substantially more. Several Democrats in Congress have introduced the Ban Conflicted Trading Act, which forbids members of Congress and senior congressional staff from buying or selling individual stocks. Do you support this act, and why or why not?
I have not looked at the particular act. Conceptually, I would support some sort of ban, but as it relates to whether or not I'd say this evening that I would support it, I'm not going to sit up and tell you that I would. I'd have to look at it first to figure out exactly whether you can kind of narrowly tailor it in order to fit the circumstances to prohibit the type of conduct that they engaged in. I think we can do that as opposed to having just a broad swath to try to catch everybody up in one particular net. The fact is that each and every one of us should have an opportunity, whether you're a senator or otherwise, should have an opportunity to be able to make certain you have a retirement account. And if that retirement account is, you have stocks in it, you should be able to do that. But as a U.S. senator, I should be under more scrutiny in terms of what type of stock transaction deals that I do. That's why I think we should be able to have a more narrowly tailored focus on it.
So if you did, to follow up quickly with this, would that be like in terms of a blind trust or something that you would then think that they should be putting their stocks into or something?
Well, I think that a blind trust is one of the vehicles that you could utilize to make certain that there is no, and that there obviously is a Chinese wall, so to speak, between you and the blind trust in terms of what they're doing. But the fact is, it's just like many of you. I'm from East Dallas myself. I lived in Frazier Courts projects, 4968 Hatcher Place. And yes, I've been able to be somewhat successful, but I want to make certain also that I don't cut off my face, to cut off my nose to smite my face. But I believe that there should be safeguards in place, like a blind trust, to keep people from profiting, if you will, because of their position in government.
Okay. The next question is from Jennifer. I can't say the name. Jennifer Skidnotico, who is a former Moms Demand Action regional lead and is now running for Texas House District 106. And her question is, you co-authored a bill, Senate Bill 406, with 2 Republicans that allows teachers and custodians to carry guns while students are present, essentially giving minimally trained civilians the okay to bring guns into our classrooms. What do you say to all of the parents who have been adamant that they do not want teachers and custodians armed? And how would you approach solving the problem of gun violence in this country?
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, very much for the question. And you're right, I did co-author that bill. And let me just kind of give you a broad perspective. I think government closest to the people is best for the people. I don't need Washington, D.C. telling Dallas, the city of Dallas, what to do. And from that standpoint, we have over 1,000 school districts in the state of Texas. We have a lot of rural school districts that have unique problems that we don't experience here in the urban school districts. If you look at that particular bill, the school districts, the board of trustees have the ability to make that particular policy. And so from that standpoint, they would end up being accountable to the voters within that specific school district as it relates to whether or not they implemented or did not implement such a policy. And so I believe that that accountability should be at the local school district. And I think that also that persons like ourselves would hold those particular elected officials accountable. But I don't believe that one size fits all in the state of Texas, nor in this country.
All right. Okay, this question is from Dallas Independent School District trustee Joyce Foreman. With the over-proliferation of charter schools in minority communities, what is your position on charter schools? And from a national perspective, what are your plans for supporting or not supporting charter schools? Encroachment on traditional public schools where they don't face the same accountability.
Well, let me start at the end. I think that they need to face the same accountability, first of all. And the best thing that we can do is elect Joe Biden as president of the United States. What does that mean? What that means is that we can get rid of Betsy DeVos, who's trying to privatize public education in this country. Joe Biden will appoint a pro-public school secretary of education, and it will be my pleasure to be able to vote to confirm that person. In terms of the oversaturation of charter schools, there is an oversaturation. I attempted during the last legislative session to breathe some common sense into this. All of us understand that we've got to have efficient use of public dollars as it relates to education. And it makes no sense locating charter schools in proximity to accountable public schools that they then turn around and offer the same curriculum. It just doesn't make sense. But when I attempted to do that, the charter school movement came after me with everything they had in order to prevent me from even just giving the commissioner of education the ability to consider that. So my point is this: you have shown me what you are and what you're attempting to do. And from that vantage point, I have no more further conversations with the charter school movement. I would make certain that every state would pass a law to, I work with other Democrats to try to pull together a coalition to make certain that we pass a law to make certain that each state looked at the efficient use of public dollars. And that efficient use, but also have an examination of whether or not we had charter schools in proximity to accountable public schools. That's what I want to do.
Right. Okay, leading up to Super Tuesday, your runoff opponent raised millions more than you. We realized that her having the DSCC backing helped, but in 2019, you raised only around $150,000 more than Christina Ramirez and Amanda Edwards, despite being one of the most prominent elected officials in Texas. Why weren't you far outpacing the third and fifth place finishers? Do you?
I mean, in terms of fundraising?
In terms of fundraising, yes.
Well, let me say a couple of things. We raised what we needed in order to be successful to get into the runoff, and we'll raise what we need in order to win the runoff. In terms of where we are right now, no, we haven't raised a bunch of money, because right after the primary election, I had to then turn up my focus to being a state senator. And all of us here know exactly what's going on in Dallas County in terms of the number of cases. So till about, frankly, April 15th, my focus was on being a state senator, making certain I dealt with COVID issues. Now, as it relates to the primary, you know, I started in July of last year in terms of my election. And the fact is that it's a whole new ball game. We were doing pretty good. You may recall that there was a question about whether or not Beto O'Rourke would get back into the race. And so there was a poll in the Dallas Morning News that showed me in heads up with John Cornyn as the #2 Democrat. And then within weeks after that, the DSCC turned around and put their thumb on the scale and anointed MJ Hager as the person that they want. And it hurt fundraising. It hurt fundraising across the country, and it hurt fundraising here in the state of Texas. And there were other Democrats, needless to say, that had races that they were running also. So we had enough in terms of resources to do what we needed to do, and we were pretty efficient in using the dollars that we received.
So on a follow-up to that, would you support adopting a publicly funded campaign finance system?
Without question. We need to do away with Citizens United, and I'm hoping that legislation that's currently there, once we get the majority in both the House and the Senate, that we will be able to have publicly funded campaigns and do away with the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court.
Awesome. Okay, CBD and ICE facilities have been plagued with problems. Last summer, they were overcrowded in light of the Central American surge. Now they face COVID-19 outbreaks. How would you address this issue?
In terms of not only, you said CBP?
CBP.
CBP, okay, gotcha. Well, not only those facilities, but also our prisons. We have an extraordinary problem with all those facilities, and we've got to make certain that we put in place as best possible social distancing criteria, as well as other CDC recommendations. If you were to ask me, do I have the answer right now? I don't have the answer right now. I know that what we've got to do is to make sure we get our best and brightest persons that understand the configuration of those particular facilities, and then utilize them to come up with ideas for our consideration. But in terms of me sitting up and saying right now that I can answer that question, I can't answer that question right now because I don't have the background to look at those spacing issues. Is there something that needs to be done? Yes. What it is, I don't have a recommendation in terms of what it is, other than get the best and best talent and brightest talent to come up with some recommendations for us.
Okay, and another question on immigration. What is your stance on the administration's decision to deny stimulus checks under the CARES Act to undocumented immigrants?
Well, I disagree with it. I mean, the fact is that now, should citizens be placed first? Yes. But should undocumented not be considered? No. They should be considered, especially if they have a history of working here in this country, paying taxes here in this country, having their families here in the country. They should not be denied.
Okay, in light of the cracks in our economic system brought about by COVID-19, for instance, the need for universal health care, no paid sick time, no emergency savings, raising the minimum wage, etc., what will be your first priority to create a stronger economic system to help the average American prepare for the next crisis?
Well, what I would do, and let's talk a couple of things. Number one, we have to make some changes in how we deal with pandemics in this country. Number one, I would make certain that we had a medical device bank, not a stockpile, where, as Jared Kushner put it, it belonged to the federal government. Number two, I'd make certain that we'd incentivize manufacturers to come to redomesticate the manufacturing of our medical devices and our pharmaceuticals, not incentivize them to utilizing the tax laws, and also mandating as best possible that they relocate these manufacturing plants in urban deserts and also rural communities. I'd make certain also that we put in place a telecommunication infrastructure, just like I think we were talking here about some of the problems that we may have with connectivity and other problems. When you begin to go to rural America, you don't have any telecommunication or sufficient telecommunication, broadband or 5G infrastructure. And we know that we've got to make certain that we have our hospitals that are closing out there. Think about telemedicine. And I was the senator that passed the telemedicine bill here in the state of Texas. So you've got that telemedicine problem. And so then you begin to look at all of the jobs. We're losing 30 million. Here in the state of Texas, do you realize that we have over 300 million jobs that we're trying to find people to fill? And so we've got to look at the various, in each state, we've got to look at the various needs that are there, make certain that those persons that have lost their jobs, that we retrain them, get them back into the industry. As an example, here in Texas, those persons that want to get into several different aspects, healthcare, computers, et cetera. There's a 6-month training program through our community colleges where those persons are making decent wages if they decide to go through the program, and they expedite a person's certification process. So we need to do those types of things. We've got to make certain our small businesses, not the Fortune 500 that are publicly traded, actually get the dollars that were promised to small businesses. And so there needs to be a check and balance process put in place to make certain that those dollars are going where they should be going. I can go on and on about that. We need to have research and development dollars. I proposed a $10 billion fund to do research and development for drugs and pharmaceuticals, and make certain that those dollars end up being, once those patents are processed, that the cost for those pharmaceuticals are next to zero, or there's a small margin, and that we replenish the fund by making certain that dollars that are spent and gained as a result of utilizing those particular pharmaceuticals go back into the fund, a portion of them go back into the fund to replenish it so we can continue to do research in the future.
Okay, so along with about healthcare and stuff, if the Dems recapture the Senate majority, it will likely be by a narrow margin. So if the House of Representatives pass a single-payer Medicare for all bill, and its Senate passage hangs by a thread, will you vote in favor of that, or are you willing to be one of the no votes that kill it?
I'm willing to be one of the no votes. I'm not for a single payer system. I want to make certain that those persons that have a health plan, I believe that we should be able to negotiate with the House in order to come up with something that's beneficial to all of us. I believe that we need, every person in this country should have a fundamental, notice what I said, fundamental right to health care. But I don't necessarily go with a single payer system. I want to make certain that if there is a insurance plan, like unions have as an example, and they want to keep that plan, that they should be able to do that. I've been in the state Senate long enough to understand that there's no perfect piece of legislation or act that's passed. We can, if people get together, they should be able to resolve differences and come up with a plan. I know that healthcare is one of those issues that have defied resolution, and John Cornyn is working with Donald Trump in order to kill the Affordable Care Act, specifically, pre-existing conditions.
Okay, so next question. Vice President Joe Biden has voiced support for resurrecting the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which President Trump rallied against and killed upon assuming office, to the cheers of many Democrats, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Despite President Obama championing, however it is, the TPP, the majority of opposing votes in Congress were Democrats. Would you support resurrecting the Trans-Pacific Partnership? And if so, why are the majority of Democratic members of Congress wrong to oppose it?
What I would do is make certain I sit down with the unions and make certain they sit at my table to kind of give me advice in terms of where they are on this particular issue. You're right, many Democrats opposed it because of the impact it was going to be having on unions. And I want to make certain that we maintain a strong economy in the United States and make certain that we have workers here in the United States that are able to work. And so that would end up being my first priority. So to the extent that the act would impact that, then I would not be supportive of it.
Okay. So this is the last question, and then we'll give you about a minute or two to wrap up, okay?
Okay.
Okay, last question. Will you support your opponent if they win the runoff? And besides lip service, what specific steps will you take to help your former opponent kick Senator Cornyn to the curb?
Well, I mean, again, let me just be real clear. I plan on winning, first of all. And then secondly, I'm going to support the Democratic ticket, the whole ticket, okay? That's been my history throughout my whole legislative career. So that's what I would do. In terms of what specific steps, I'm a team player. Whatever role I need to play, that's what I'll do. If I need to be out front on some issues, I'll be out front. As an example, this vote by mail issue, I would love to see it. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I have offices in Dallas, Houston, and also Fort Worth. And so I'd love to see Ken Paxton come to the courtroom against an individual to try to incarcerate him because of this ridiculous position he's taken. I'd love to be the lawyer on the other side, and I'd love to litigate this issue with him. So whatever role I need to play, that's what I'll do. And that's what I'm saying to you, that you need Royce West at the top of the ticket.
Thank you so much, Senator West. We really enjoyed hearing from you tonight. We will be sending the list of all of the questions that we received, and hope your campaign can send it back in writing to us so we can get the information out to all of our members. And if you have any follow-up you'd like with us, please don't hesitate to contact us. And we were thrilled to have you on.
Thank you very much. In closing, in making closing statements, this is what I would say to you. You've heard me say 2 times you need Royce West at the top of the ticket. I'm not the only one that believes that. When you begin to look at my resume, and most of us have resumes, we have experiences and then we have references. I want you to look at both, do a comparison and a contrast. I'm a Democrat. I'm a true Democrat. I voted Democrat all my life. And so I've been involved and committed to the Democratic Party. Involved because you see that I am a member of the Senate, of the State Democratic Executive Committee, and also the DNC Executive Committee. That's involvement and commitment. I have helped finance candidates up and down the ballot. And when you begin to look at my experiences, I've dealt with issues, women's issues, criminal justice, climate change, voting rights. All of those issues I've been involved in. Healthcare, been involved in those issues. And when you begin to look at the references, this is what you'll see. You'll see that of the 12 candidates that ran for the U.S. Senate, most of them are supporting me as the candidate that they want to see endorsed. They've endorsed me, and I'm the candidate they're working for to get elected to the United States Senate. When you begin to look at Democrats around this state, not around the country, but around this state, what you see is that I've got the support of Eddie Bernice Johnson. All of us know Eddie Bernice. I've got the support of Mark Vesey. You know Mark Vesey. I've got the support of Al Green, Sylvia Garcia, in terms of the congressional delegation. And most of the Democrats in state government are supporting Royce West, 10 of the 12 state senators. When you begin to look at the AFL-CIO, yes, there was a co-endorsement today, but the AFL-CIO is endorsing Royce West. The CWA, women, the Texas Black Women's PAC endorsed me today. The American Federation of Teachers, all are endorsing me. Tyler Democrats. I'm naming these organizations, my friends, to let you know that I will be able to pull these persons together. And you say, Royce, well, how are you going to win it? I'm going to nationalize this race, and there's going to be political synergy. And I know that we'll be able to raise the necessary funds in order to make certain that we win this race. If you truly want to turn Texas blue, then your choice should be Royce. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Senator Royce. Truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm getting ready to get on my Zoom, get my Zoom car and leave now.
Okay, that sounds good. We will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye. So everyone else, stay on. We're going to have just a few minutes of a little bit of a break. MJ is going to be on in just a couple minutes, right at 7:15, and then we'll get started with the next round of questions. Jill, was there anything else you needed to say or any wrap up?
I don't think so. I hope everybody enjoyed those questions. Thank you again to everybody who wrote wonderful questions, very thoughtful questions. And they will be different questions for MJ, but covering the same issues. So that's why since they weren't on at the same time and able to answer one, or debate actually, we decided to do it this way and ask separate questions to the candidates, but on the same issue. So again, we will be sending all of the questions to both campaigns to send back their responses. Thank you.
Awesome.
And I'm going to get off this camera too. Bye.
I like it. I think we have some other people joining. And so here in just a second, when we know we have MJ's team on, we will, Jill turned off her camera. We will go through some of the information from the beginning again, because I think we've had some folks join. Okay, so if everybody can hold on just a second. Here, we'll see if we can do the music again. Maybe. Nope, it's not connected anymore, so you just have to look at me. So I think I see Kirby on. And do we have, has MJ joined yet?
Tell us a joke, Christy.
Gosh, I should have thought of a joke. I don't have jokes.
It said that MJ was on earlier. A second ago, it had her on.
Yeah, I saw her and then she jumped off. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, she's having a little bit of trouble. And so I think she was jumping off and jumping back on. So we have her dial in again. Yes. Okay, she's going to try to jump back on. Little technical difficulties here and there.
I have a joke.
Trisha's joke.
Tell us a joke, Joe.
No, Trisha.
Oh, Trisha has a joke too.
Tell
Trisha,
us, Trish.
why don't you see elephants hiding in trees?
I feel like this could have something to do with Republicans.
Too many leaves?
Because they're so good at it.
It's an elephant joke.
That's a good. Okay, Joe, what's your elephant joke?
The cannibal. I didn't have an elephant joke. It's the past, the present, and the future walked into the bar together, and it was tense.
That's an English teacher joke.
Hey, Joe, while you're on, I unmuted myself really quickly. Check your text.
I have
Oh
a rip.
man, now we all want to hear the tea that was going on in secret text messages.
I just texted her a question because she's doing the questions for MJ. So I just said we need to be consistent.
All right. And then I got another one. Brian said, what did one cannibal say to the other cannibal when eating a clown?
Does this taste
taste
funny to
funny?
Does
you?
this taste funny?
Hey, my dad jokes are on par.
I love a dad joke. Those are
Oh, well, how about this, you guys?
okay.
My mom's mask is themed because it's a pandemic.
That's a great one. Okay, we got one more here. Nancy Bryant. What do you call an abortion in Czechoslovakia?
Oh, no.
Cancel check.
A canceled. Oh my gosh. Okay. All righty.
I love that.
I'm gonna get okay. I'm ready for jokes. I didn't know it was gonna be joke time. Next meeting we're gonna have jokes. All right, so let's see. MJ, I think MJ is on. Let me see. MJ, are you on?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Oh, there she is. Yay. We can do
Hi.
stuff. We can do technical stuff. All right, so let me tell you, we just got done with Senator West, and we're gonna I'm gonna go through kind of the run through of how we're gonna do this, and
Okay.
and then we'll get going. I'm gonna go over just a few technical things on how to work this because we've had some additional people join since I did it at the very beginning. So if you guys were already here, then go ahead and sit through this one more time. Give me 1 second. I did this wrong. Okay, here we go. If you just joined, I'm going to show you this. This is not me. This is a picture of me from before. If you just joined on GoToMeeting, if you look up at the top of your screen, you see something that says View Everyone or something else by it, but it has these two little arrows by it. If you can go up there, and when you click on those arrows, then there's going to be a little menu option that pops down, and you can choose who's talking. And that way, when Joe is asking the question or MJ is answering the question, you see them big on your screen instead of a whole bunch of little screens or little boxes of everybody there. Okay, so one more time, you go up to the top to the View Everyone, you click it, and then you choose who's talking. Okay, now let me see if I can get out of here real quickly. Maybe. Always takes me a second. See, I'm doing it wrong. There we go. Okay, so we're back at it. So what's going to happen now is we've got MJ on, we've got her team on, and we're going to do the same type of process that we did a little earlier with Senator West. So Joe's going to be asking the questions. And again, MJ, I'm Christy Noble, and Joe Sutton is one of our other leaders, and she's going to be asking the questions of you. We're going to give you 2 minutes to give a brief intro, whatever you want to tell us about yourself, why you're running, all that kind of great stuff. And then Joe's going to ask you questions, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer each of those questions. And I'll have something here, and if you get starting close, you'll have a little beep, 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 beep in your ear, and you can wrap that up and then go from there. And then at the end, you'll have a couple minutes to give a little wrap up and anything you want to redirect or anything like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. We so appreciate you being here tonight. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you guys.
Okay, so Joe, are you unmuted?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to you, Joe.
Okay. Again, thank you, MJ. It's good to meet you. We've heard about you, but we've not had a chance yet to get to know you. If you want to go ahead and take a couple of minutes and just tell everybody a little bit about your background. I, until recently, didn't know that you had been a school teacher, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started with questions.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you guys so much for taking the time tonight. I know that this is a crazy time. A lot of people have very full plates. A lot of people are juggling a lot of crazy things. I'm sure I'm talking to teachers that are worried about their kiddos, to healthcare workers that are worried about getting sick and are really heroes right now on the front line of this, and people working in meatpacking places that are keeping us fed, people that have lost their jobs, maybe people that are worried about losing their jobs or caring for a sick loved one. Thank you for not taking your eye off the ball. John Cornyn really hopes that we do, and I'm here to tell you that we're not going to, because in order for us to recover from what's going on, we're going to have to replace him and a lot of people down ballot and up ballot. And I'm here to do that, and I know you guys are too. And I'm really looking forward to working with y'all over the next 6 months to take down John Cornyn. I'm specifically running for the U.S. Senate because I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, when I put on the uniform. But I also have 2 small kids, a 3- and a 5-year-old. So I'm fighting to have a country where they are proud of their immigration system, where we're not committing human rights violations, where they can breathe the air and drink the water, where they have access to healthcare and education, and we have strong alliances around the world and a strong reputation at the UN. I think that those things are under threat right now. And so I'm doing this for my kids and your kids, and to fulfill the oath that I took to support and defend the Constitution. I do see a domestic threat to the Constitution right now in the actions of this administration and leading up to it, frankly. It's not really just this administration. I think that a lot of the problems that we're seeing bubble over right now have been in the works for a long time, and we can do better, and we have to do better. Senator Cornyn's made it very clear time and again that he is working for his special interest donors and not for working families in Texas. I think one of the main things that I've learned over the course of our campaign and driving tens of thousands of miles and, getting the support of hundreds of thousands of people and nearly 1 million people in the primary, is that working families in Texas are really sick of politicians.
Close to the end. Uh-oh.
Someone who can beat Cornyn and has can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
We need somebody who can. Okay, so sorry about that. Let me wrap up. We need someone who has the experience that it's going to take to fight for people, and I don't think that experience is the kind of experience that John Cornyn has, which as a wealthy, lawyer who's a career politician who hasn't faced the challenges that you and I have faced. I've waited tables. I've worried about Social Security. I've lost my health care. I've, been laid off from my job, and I think that while we have legislators in a position to legislate solutions to the challenges of regular working families who have never faced those challenges, that's why there's a lot of dysfunction and that they can't come up with these solutions. So we can defeat him. We can return this seat back to Texas. We can deliver a healthy dose of Texas values to DC, but we can't do it with politics as usual, and I can't do it without you. So I'm really excited to entertain your questions at this point.
Okay, great. Our first one comes to us from our climate rats. Do you support ending federal subsidies to the fossil fuel industry? And would you support investing in renewables, battery storage, a 21st century grid instead of the fossil fuel industry?
Yes, this is one of the main things that I talk about, actually. Climate change is the greatest threat facing our kids and our country, national security-wise. Even the Pentagon has deemed it one of the greatest national security threats. And I think that there's a perception outside of Texas that we're not on board with climate change action, aggressive action on climate change and with renewable energy. And it's because we lead the country in the energy industry. Well, I'm here to tell you we have to continue leading the country in the energy industry, and clearly the future of the energy industry is in renewables. And right now, China's leading in renewable energy, and that just pisses me off. But my friends at the IBEW, I've been endorsed by and have a great relationship with, a lot of labor endorsements. We got endorsed by the AFL-CIO today, by the way. Very exciting. My relationship with them has taught me so much about this topic, and we absolutely need a major infrastructure investment to modernize the grid for it to be able to handle peak load on renewable energy. So Texas is on board. We want to save energy jobs, and that doesn't mean continuing to invest in fossil fuels. What it means is being forward thinking and embracing that innovative technology, that sometimes innovative technology comes along and disrupts an industry. We need to embrace that if we're going to survive and we're going to protect those jobs.
Okay, thank you. Election forecasting extraordinaire Rachel Bitkofer, whose 2018 forecast wound up far more accurate than most mainstream pundits, said in a town hall co-hosted by the feds that the key to flipping Texas is bolstering Latino turnout. She elaborated about how helpful it would be to have a Latino or Latina candidate topping the ticket. Neither you nor your opponent are Latino or Latina. How is your candidacy poised to bolster the Latino turnout in November?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw stones, but I mean, if we look at last cycle, I think it's offensive to think that people will only vote for somebody whose name sounds like theirs. I mean, we didn't see that with Lupe. We didn't see just a giant amount of turnout. We see turnout in different segments of the voter population when a candidate speaks to the issues that are important to those people. And it's a mistake when candidates go into Latino areas and just talk about immigration. They forget that they're talking to Americans and Texans and parents and people who are worried about the economy and their retirement and their access to healthcare. And, you know, Latino issues are human rights issues, are electorate issues, are general election issues. We have traditionally done very well with Latinos, and I did last cycle across all demographics in my congressional district. And the reason is we hyper localize everything. So, like, for example, right now we're doing a virtual road trip across the state. We're resisting the temptation to go wide and see how many people and how much area we can cover. We're staying hyper local in small groups so that we're chatting with people about issues in the way that they're talking about them around their kitchen tables instead of like pundits or the Washington Post headlines. So we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing because it's been working. We've been very strong with these groups, and we're going to continue to be because they know that I care about them, that I don't see them as other, that I don't see them as one-issue voters or people who will only vote for someone that looks like them.
Excellent. Okay. This is from the Texas State Board of Education member, Aisha Davis. Secretary DeVos awarded $65 million to expand charters across the country this past April 10th. $17.6 million was specifically earmarked for charter schools in Texas. However, current policies allow hiring uncertified teachers, background checks for students as a condition of enrollment, inadequate staffing for students with special needs, and exclusion of counseling and library services. How would you ensure the U.S. Department of Education fosters rules to truly protect and enhance traditional public schools which accept all students?
By not confirming people like that who don't know what they're talking about, by making sure that we have teachers at the table for these conversations, because sometimes legislation goes through. This is what I mean by we need regular people who have faced everyday challenges to be legislating, because sometimes legislation will come through that ends up having an unintended consequence that nobody saw because they've been in this little ivory tower bubble of DC for 30 years. So, you know, I think that there are some charter schools doing good, but we cannot allow charter schools to cherry pick their students, to allow other schools, other public schools to be overburdened with higher than, you know, proportionate numbers of special needs students. It's not fair to the students. It's not fair to the teachers. And I just think that, you know, a lot of these missteps can be avoided if we have teachers at the table during the formulation of the legislation instead of after the fact reacting to it. I have a very collaborative, so much so that I just called myself I have a very collaborative leadership style that comes from my time in the military, understanding that, you know, if I form a team of people who can advise me and can help me, then I'm going to legislate effectively, and we're going to avoid a lot of the pitfalls and the unintended consequences. So I'm a product of public education. Public education is very important to me. My children will be going through public education. It is the future of our country. We have to support teachers. We cannot be arming teachers. We have to be listening to teachers when they tell us what they need and giving that to them.
Okay. What do you think that you will be able to accomplish on gun sense? We know that you support a ban on the sale of guns of war. Will you support a buyback program within the neighborhoods, something like that?
You know, I think we need to start referring to these weapons as mass casualty weapons. I was a medevac pilot, and so I've seen what these weapons can do to a body. I've also been shot with one of these weapons. I am a gun violence survivor, and they don't belong in the hands of civilians, period. And we do need a system by which people who don't want to have these weapons anymore, maybe they bought one 10 years ago, or, you know, can sell them back. There's really not much in place there. But so often we focus on that, and I actually don't think that that is going to make as big of a dent as some of the other low-hanging fruit that we absolutely have to get. Now, we cannot get action on the low-hanging fruit while we have money in politics. The gun lobby is very powerful. They are definitely, John Cornyn is in their pocket. He legislates to that effect. We have to make sure that we are bringing responsible gun owners like myself, I'm a gun owner, to the table to be talking about these things, because most responsible gun owners want to see things like universal background checks, an end to open carry, responsible storage. It's crazy right now that the liability laws are written such that if your dog gets out of your backyard and bites someone, you're in more trouble than if somebody gets a hold of your weapon because you didn't responsibly store it and uses it to hurt someone. So, you know, there's so much that can be done. We have to fully fund the CDC. We have to pass ERPOs, the extreme risk protection orders. Obviously, we have to stop the sale of weapons of war. We can trace so much of an increase in violence, not just in our country, but in Mexico, which is contributing to a humanitarian crisis and an asylum crisis, you know, asylum seekers crisis at our border, which, by the way, John Cornyn, who took a check from the gun lobby 2 weeks after El Paso, also takes checks from the private prison industry. So he legislates in a way that maximizes the violence and maximizes the profits for the gun lobby, and then maximizes the profits for the private detention centers. So we got to get corporate money out of politics. We've got to pass common sense gun safety legislation. Most responsible gun owners want it. It has overwhelming support, and we can get it done if we have legislators who are putting our constituents first. So proud of my Moms Demand Action endorsement, or they did a gun sense candidate designation, Giffords and Brady endorsements. Just, you know, we have a lot of work to do in this area, but it's work that can be done, and it is something that we can do something about.
Excellent, thank you. The Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, ICE, did not exist prior to 2003 when it was founded by George W. Bush, or his administration. They've come under heavy fire for a variety of unconscionable practices, including racial profiling, apprehending natural-born U.S. citizens of color, and taking advantage of stay-at-home orders, just to scratch the surface. Do you support working towards eliminating ICE? And if not, why do you feel that this agency is necessary if it wasn't founded until Bush 43 did so in 2003?
Yeah, I really think this is another instance where we're focusing on the wrong thing, to be frank with you. I think that we have to stop the behaviors that you just listed. And whether or not that's under this group or Customs and Border Patrol, whatever the group is called, I do think that there is an argument to be made that just seeing ICE on equipment does strike fear into the hearts of people who are just trying to live their lives and trying to, you know, provide a better life for their kids. So it's actually dangerous for law enforcement. It's counterproductive to the relationship that we're trying to build, and to the, you know, the immigration reform that we're trying to enact. And by the way, John Cornyn has, you know, opposed a lot of bipartisan immigration reform because he wants to maximize the profit margin of the private detention centers. So during my many trips to the border, I've talked with people who are on the front lines of this, and I can tell you through the conversation with them that our communities are made stronger by our immigrants, and we need to start honoring those contributions and treating people with dignity. We have to end family separation. We need comprehensive immigration reform that's more reflective of American values, that doesn't make us lose our footing and our reputation at the UN and globally, which I think is happening now. We're losing our influence because we're committing our own human rights violations. We have to have a pathway to citizenship. We have to roll up our sleeves and really collaborate with our border communities. And again, you'll hear this a lot from me, make sure they have a seat at the table when we're crafting the legislation, permanently end child separation. That's something that keeps me up every night. And we can secure the border effectively without a wall, with investments in technology. And here, just to loop back to the behaviors that you were talking about, the correct policy, but also it's a leadership thing. There is a culture of cruelty that we have to do something about. And we can do that with the right leadership and with the right guidance and with the right policies. And no matter what the organization is called, it will be abused, and power will be abused with poor leadership I'm very excited to be going to El Paso tomorrow on my virtual road trip, and it's going to be hosted by Representative Veronica Escobar. I'm really excited. I've had a lot of great conversations with her, learning a lot about her vision for immigration reform as well. This is an area that I am very passionate about, and I'm looking forward to being able to make a dent in.
Thank you. Currently, anti-choice crisis pregnancy centers receive federal funding. Do you support this? And if not, how would you work to fund them?
No, I think that we absolutely need to have federal funding. You know, a lot of times that gets painted as, I don't know, people who can't afford this care and afford access to abortions, which that's part of it. But what people don't understand is barring women from having abortions using federal dollars also really impacts women in the military. So we have a sexual assault epidemic in the military as well. So if you have a female soldier in Iraq deployed who gets sexually assaulted, who then gets pregnant, and she doesn't have access to an abortion because we can't use federal funding for it, y'all, the whole thing is a mess. And we absolutely need to make sure that, number one, we don't have representatives who politicize women's reproductive rights and healthcare in a time of crisis like they're doing right now, trying to say that abortion is an elective procedure. So they're using the COVID-19 crisis to try to move the football on their political agenda. That's something that voters on both sides of the aisle and independents really hate. We just need to support women. We need to support clinics and centers that are providing life-saving care. I talked to a woman in McAllen the other day who was telling me that when she was 30, she was in a Planned Parenthood clinic that diagnosed her with breast cancer, and she had to have a partial mastectomy, and that she would have died if it wasn't for Planned Parenthood. We need to not be attacking people's already very limited access to healthcare just because of political football. I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood. We announced a NARAL endorsement today. Very excited about that. Y'all, these endorsements are not easy to get. And they come after months, if not years, of relationship building and proving that I am a warrior and a fighter and somebody who can move the needle on this issue. And I definitely think it's going to be something that, again, we're going to be able to do something about when we run a very solidly, tightly coordinated campaign that not only takes John Cornyn and packs his bags, but flips our state house and breaks the Republican supermajority in the state Senate.
Okay. Christy, where are we? I think my clock shows 7:37. Christy?
I'm here.
I think,
Yes.
okay.
We can do one more question if you have it, and then a wrap up. Does that sound okay with you, MJ?
Yeah, sure. I wish I could stay with y'all for an hour.
I know it would be difficult, but are you willing at some point to participate in a debate with your opponent, Royce West?
Oh, absolutely. We've already met a dozen times or more, and we have more debates on the calendar in the future. But if I can be transparent for a minute, I really think that we need to do enough to inform voters on their choice that they have in front of them, but not do so much that we're doing damage to each other. I really think that we've got to stop fighting against each other and start coming together and showing voters why we are a better choice than John Cornyn. I've been running against Cornyn for a year. I got a lot of flack for running against Cornyn during the primary, but it resonated with voters because they are really tired of the politics as usual and the infighting and the bickering, and we got to get to work, y'all. I mean, we're neck and neck in the polls with Cornyn now. He is very vulnerable, much more vulnerable than Ted Cruz was. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to not only run a coordinated that flips our state house, but to push up 38 electoral votes. Y'all, we cannot let this opportunity fly by us. The blue wave is not just coming, but there's an opportunity for one if we work for it. So yes, we will be, of course, debating, but we are trying to give enough information to get voters to understand the choice they have in front of them without going at each other and hurting each other, because frankly, I'm going to win this runoff, and I need Royce as an ally in the state Senate. I need his voice there. I need his voice with the other people that I'm bringing to the state Senate and to the state House. I ran a very coordinated in my congressional last cycle that flipped 2 state House seats. And the guy I ran against, the congressman I ran against, won his last midterm by 32 points, and we lost by 2.9 because we outperformed all the statewide candidates in the rural half of the district, including Beto. We've got to outperform in rural Texas, y'all. I'm telling you, we have an opportunity. The data is very clear. We're gonna beat this guy. We're raising tons of money. We have so much grassroots support. Our average online donation is $22, and we've raised over $5 million that way. We're raising right now at 2/3 the rate of Cornyn with all of his gun lobby money and big pharma money, and we're just building momentum while he is stagnant. So we're gonna get to this powerhouse place that's needed to flip this seat and to make real change here in Texas. And we can't do that by bickering and infighting. Now, we have a ton of endorsements as well. I know that Senator Royce West does as well, and I'm proud of his endorsements for him. I'm looking forward to working with him after this. But we've got the endorsements that really speak to viability, which is what's really important right now. The DSCC endorsement, Emily's List, Vote Vets, Planned Parenthood, the gun safety endorsements, the women's reproductive rights endorsements, the union and labor endorsements. I'm really excited about the team we've built. You guys are a part of that team. Please join our team. I can't do this without you, but with you, we're going to have a lot to celebrate in November.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, MJ, for joining.
Yeah, we'll talk to y'all really soon.
Absolutely. And just as a closing thing with you, MJ, we're going to take the questions that we had, and we're going to send them back to both of you, and you can write out a more thorough answer if you'd like, and we'll post those on our Facebook group and our website. And so we're very excited for either one of you to flip that seat. We're so excited for you. Thank you so much.
Well, can't wait to work with you all over the next 6 months, and looking forward to it. Thank you all so much. Stay in touch with my campaign. Let's keep going. Let me know what y'all need.
We
all
absolutely will. We absolutely will. So,
all right, take care, y'all. Thank you.
Bye-bye, MJ.
Bye.
So Feds, thank you guys so much for being here. I think it was great to have them one after the other, to hear them both at the same time and compare and contrast. What we have coming up over the next few weeks, I just want to share with you, is we did a big round of postcards in April. That set of about 4,500 postcards went out to people who might not have gotten information from us before. So we're reaching out deeper into the blue stratosphere, basically. What we're going to be doing now is, if there wasn't COVID, we were going to be working in our precincts and trying to build teams to get people engaged, kind of like MJ said, at a micro local level, to know other Democrats in their areas. We're going to be doing that. We're going to be reaching out to you guys through your precinct organizers, and we're going to be doing some more postcarding. We're also going to be working to get these type of meetings for each of our House districts that are in our area. So you're going to be talking with your House districts and hopefully some of the statewide judicial candidates in this type of forum until we get back to something where we're meeting in place, because we obviously don't know when that's going to be. And then we'll also have a lot of activities. If you guys are interested in writing some postcards that we will be sending out in September to people within East Dallas to say why it's important to vote. That's going to be happening in the next several weeks. Be watching our website, our Facebook page, and the Feds newsletter. So again, Feds, it's great to see your guys' faces in the little boxes and see your names. We love you guys. We're going to have more of this, and we still have to continue to make an impact, even if we're in our houses. And we're figuring out ways that we can do that. Okay? Love you guys. Love the Feds. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.